It all began with a single text message that I didn't mean to see. I wasn't snooping, I swear. But when your phone buzzes at 1 a.m. and your wife's phone is left on the counter, face up, something inside you makes you glance. It's like that feeling when you hear a door creak open in the middle of the night, and suddenly, you're too curious to stay still. The message was from a contact I didn't recognize, just a string of words that immediately caught my attention. I can't stop thinking about that night. I froze. My mind started to race, but my hands just hovered. I didn't unlock the phone, but something told me I should. Something told me that this was the moment everything would change. I tried to ignore it. After all, Lily never kept secrets from me, right? But I kept seeing those words. I can't stop thinking about that night. Lily had been acting differently for weeks now. Little things. A late night at the office. More work dinners that went longer than planned. A few more sorry, I just didn't have time to call texts. Nothing that screamed infidelity, of course, but enough to make me feel like something was off. And when I saw that message, well, it hit like a freight train. I didn't ask her about it. Not then. I couldn't. Instead, I did something I never thought I'd do. I started paying more attention. More than I ever had before. Little shifts in her routine. The way her laughter sounded when we were out with friends. How she'd glance at her phone when I was talking to her. I told myself I was just being paranoid. But there was always a little voice in my head whispering, maybe you're not paranoid. Maybe you're right. The next morning, Lily didn't mention anything about her late-night text. She was too busy getting ready for work, rushing around like she always did. I didn't bring it up either, partly because I didn't want to confront the possibility, and partly because I wasn't sure how I would even start the conversation. Hey, who's this person you're thinking about? Yeah, that would go well. But as the day went on, I couldn't shake it. I thought about that message constantly. I can't stop thinking about that night. The words replayed in my mind, and I had this strange, sick feeling in my stomach. That night. What night? I needed answers, and for the first time, I realized I had no idea where to get them. Lily left the house around 6 p.m., as usual, for a team-building event with her co-workers. I used to be okay with her going out, I really did. I trusted her, I thought. But today was different. Today, I couldn't help but wonder what really went down during those nights she spent working late. I tried to push the thought away again, but the truth was gnawing at me. I stayed home, pacing around the living room, trying to distract myself. Finally, I couldn't take it any longer. I grabbed my phone and opened up my own messaging app. The message had been sitting there, unanswered, from weeks ago. You sure you don't want to come out with us tonight? It was from my old friend, Jack. He was always trying to get me to go out for drinks, but I hadn't been in the mood lately. But tonight felt different. I didn't want to sit there, waiting for Lily to come home. I wanted to drown out the questions in my head, to forget about that damn text. I tapped out a quick reply. Sure, count me in. I had no idea how much that night would change everything. I met Jack at the bar. It wasn't a big place, just a quiet spot where we used to hang out back in the day. I wasn't expecting anything wild, just a few drinks to get my mind off things. But as soon as I walked in, I saw someone I didn't expect, someone I never thought I'd see there. Lily. My heart stopped. She was sitting at the far end of the bar, laughing. Not just talking, laughing. And not alone. She was sitting next to a man I didn't recognize, someone whose hand was resting on her shoulder, a little too casually. I froze in place. At first, I thought I was imagining things, but no, this was real. I could see it. Lily, my wife, was out with someone else. Not just out. She was sitting close to him, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. Her body language was all wrong. It was intimate. I stood there for a long moment, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. My mind was a mess, but one thing was clear. I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know who she was anymore. And that terrified me. I wanted to walk up to her, confront her right then and there. I wanted to demand answers. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the shock, or maybe it was the realization that I wasn't ready for the truth. So, I stayed in the shadows, watching her, watching them. What had happened to my wife? What was going on behind closed doors? As I stood there, too stunned to move, I heard something that made everything worse. Lily's laughter filled the room again, and then the guy leaned in closer. I heard the words, clear as day, "I've missed you." That was the moment I knew. It wasn't just a friendly drink after work. It wasn't just a colleague. I wasn't imagining things. There was something going on, something that had been going on for a lot longer than I'd realized. And I had no idea what I was about to find out. I don't know what exactly made me stay at the bar that night. Maybe it was the shock, the sheer disbelief. Maybe it was the overwhelming desire to keep my distance from the truth, because, in that moment, I didn't want to believe what I was seeing. But the longer I stood there, the harder it became to deny it. Lily was sitting there, laughing with a man who was not me, her hand casually resting on his arm, her body turned toward him like she couldn't get any closer. I had to look away. It was too much. The idea that my wife, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, could be sitting in a bar like that, with someone else. It made me feel like I was suffocating. I felt like a ghost, like I was watching the life I'd built from the outside. I turned my back on the scene. I couldn't watch anymore, not without doing something foolish. My mind was spinning, my body tense, my heart racing in a way I had never experienced before. I walked out of the bar without even finishing my drink, my legs carrying me on autopilot through the streets. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I didn't care to look at it. I couldn't focus on anything other than the image of my wife, so comfortable, so familiar with another man. The worst part? I couldn't even figure out who he was. I thought back to all the late nights she'd spent at the office, all the times she'd come home a little too late, a little too tired to even talk. I had always told myself that it was just work, that she was just busy. But now I felt like I had been blind, or worse, naive. How could I have missed this? I didn't know where I was going. I didn't even care. I just needed space to think. My thoughts were swirling so fast that it was like I couldn't keep up. My fingers tightened around my phone as I stood on the corner of a busy intersection. I looked up and saw a flashing neon sign for a 24-hour coffee shop. It seemed like the kind of place where I could just sit and think, quietly, away from the noise of the world. I walked in without thinking twice, found a booth in the corner, and sat down, running my fingers through my hair. It wasn't long before I felt my phone buzz again. It was a message from Lily. "I'm sorry, I lost track of time. I'll be home soon." I stared at the message for a while, and then something strange happened. The anger I had been feeling started to fade, replaced with this heavy, sinking feeling. I didn't know why she was out with that guy, but I wasn't stupid. The way she'd been looking at him, the way they had been leaning in toward each other, it wasn't just casual. She wasn't just catching up with a colleague. I sent her a simple reply, one that I hoped would keep things calm, though I wasn't sure if it would work. "Okay. Be careful. We'll talk when you get home." And then I sat there, waiting. The minutes stretched on. I could hear the faint hum of the coffee shop's machines, the clinking of spoons against cups, but it all felt distant, like I was in a fog. My mind kept drifting back to the image of Lily sitting with that man. My wife, my partner, was out there with someone else, sharing a connection I didn't even know about. It was like the pieces of my life were slowly falling apart, and I had no idea how to put them back together. Time passed, and I eventually left the coffee shop, walking aimlessly through the streets until I found myself standing outside our apartment building. I didn't want to go inside. I didn't want to face the woman who was supposed to be the love of my life, the woman who had been hiding something from me for who knows how long. But I didn't have a choice. I had to confront her. I had to know the truth, even if it was something I wasn't ready to hear. When I walked through the door, Lily was sitting on the couch, her shoes off, her purse lying next to her. She was scrolling through her phone, oblivious to my presence at first. "Hey," I said quietly, standing in the doorway. She looked up, startled, and then smiled as though nothing was wrong. "Hey, you're back early. How was your night?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. "I wasn't at the bar long," I said. "How about you? What was going on with Sam?" Her face froze for a moment, and I saw her glance at the floor, like she was trying to come up with an answer. It was the smallest of moments, but it told me everything I needed to know. "Sam?" she said, her voice slightly higher than usual. "What do you mean?" I folded my arms across my chest. "I saw you," I said flatly, my voice catching a little in my throat. "You were at the bar with him, sitting close, laughing. I heard what he said to you." Her eyes widened, and I saw the color drain from her face. "You," she stammered. "You saw us." I nodded. "I don't understand, Lily. What's going on? Why didn't you tell me? Why are you hiding things?" The silence that followed was suffocating. I could feel the weight of her words hanging in the air, and for the first time, I wasn't sure what she was going to say. But the longer she stayed quiet, the harder it was to ignore what I already knew deep down. Something had changed, and I wasn't sure if I could ever go back to the way things were. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she stood up and walked toward me. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean for you to find out this way." That was it. I couldn't process anything else after that. The truth, whatever it was out now, and nothing would ever be the same again. When Lily stood up, walking toward me with that look in her eyes, I almost couldn't breathe. I didn't know what she was going to say, but I knew this wasn't going to be a simple explanation. I had seen enough, heard enough. There was no going back from the truth. The question now was, what was her truth? "I'm sorry," she said quietly, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean for you to find out this way." I felt like the world had just shifted beneath me. The words she spoke should have been comforting, maybe even a sign that she was ready to tell me everything. But the way she said it, with that edge of fear in her voice, only made me more confused. "Why didn't you tell me, Lily?" I asked, my voice tight. "Why were you hiding this from me?" Her eyes dropped to the floor, and for a second, I thought she wasn't going to answer. It was like she was looking for a way out, but there was no escape from this moment. We were both trapped in this web of lies, and I wasn't sure which direction to pull to get out. "Because I didn't want to hurt you," she finally whispered. I felt my chest tighten. Hurt me? My mind raced back to that bar, to the way she had looked at him, the way they had shared jokes and quiet moments that were too intimate for two colleagues. "So you were just going to keep pretending everything was fine? That nothing was wrong?" She took a deep breath, like she was preparing for something heavy. "It's not what you think. I wasn't sure how to tell you. It just happened. It just happened." The words hit me like a slap in the face. It didn't feel like it just happened. It felt like something much bigger, something planned, something that had been building up over time. "Tell me the truth, Lily," I said, forcing the words out. "Tell me everything." Her eyes flicked up to meet mine, and there was a depth of sadness in them that made my heart ache. I've been seeing Sam. We've been seeing each other for a while now, and I didn't know how to tell you because I knew how much it would hurt. I'm sorry." There it was. The truth, finally laid bare. I wanted to feel angry, to scream, but instead, I felt numb. All this time, I had been living in a version of reality where everything was fine. My wife loved me. We had a good life, a good marriage. But that was all a lie, wasn't it? Everything I thought I knew about our relationship was crumbling around me, piece by piece. "How long, Lily?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I didn't even recognize myself anymore. "How long has this been going on?" She hesitated, her face contorting in pain, but there was no escaping it now. "For about 6 months," she admitted, barely able to meet my gaze. "It started as work, just dinners, drinks, talking about the project. But then it became something else, something more, and I couldn't stop it. I didn't know how." I could barely process what she was saying. 6 months? 6 months of her life that I had no part in, no idea about. My mind reeled. I had been so blind, so wrapped up in my own assumptions about our marriage, that I never saw what was happening right in front of me. "You think you can just say it's over like that?" I asked, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "You think you can just tell me you've been seeing someone else for 6 months, and I'm supposed to just accept it?" Her face crumbled, and I could see the guilt all over her. But it wasn't just guilt. There was something darker behind her eyes. Something she wasn't saying. "I never wanted this to happen," she said quickly. "I didn't mean to hurt you, I swear. But I've been so lost, so confused about everything." "You've been confused?" I couldn't hold it in anymore. The anger boiled over. "I've been here, Lily. I've been right here, the whole time. But you've been living a lie. You've been sneaking around behind my back." "I didn't know how to stop," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I never wanted it to get this far. I thought if I kept it to myself, you wouldn't find out. I thought we could go on like nothing had changed." "Nothing had changed?" I almost laughed, though it didn't feel funny at all. "Everything's changed, Lily. You've been lying to me for months. You've been lying to yourself. And you thought you could just keep living like this? Like nothing was wrong?" The silence that followed was suffocating. My mind was a storm, spinning with anger, disbelief, and a million questions I didn't even know how to ask. How could she do this to me? How could she sit there and act like everything was okay? "I never wanted to hurt you," she repeated, but the words felt hollow now. They didn't make up for the damage, for the betrayal. I took a step back, trying to regain control over my emotions. "How could you not see what this was doing to me?" I asked, the words heavy with a bitterness I didn't know I had inside me. How could you think that keeping all this a secret would protect me? She reached out, but I stepped back, unable to let her touch me. I didn't want her touch, not now. Not after everything she had done. I'm sorry, she whispered again, but I didn't want to hear it. The apologies meant nothing anymore. They were empty words, spoken too late. The damage had already been done. I turned away, needing space. I needed to think. I needed to process everything she had just confessed, but most of all, I needed to figure out what came next. What did I do now? How could I move forward when everything I thought I knew about my life had been shattered? Lily's voice followed me as I moved toward the door. Please, don't go. We need to talk more. We can fix this. But I couldn't stay. I wasn't sure if I could ever stay again. I didn't know where to go or what to do next. My heart was pounding in my chest, my mind swirling in a chaotic storm of emotions I couldn't even begin to process. I was suffocating in the weight of her confession. 6 months. 6 months of betrayal. 6 months of lies, all while I was right there, living in this delusional bubble, believing everything was fine. How had I missed all the signs? Lily's voice broke through the chaos in my mind. Please, she pleaded, her voice small and broken. I need you to understand. This wasn't something I wanted. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. But how could she think I would understand? How could she expect me to just accept what had happened and pretend like everything would be okay? My entire perception of our relationship had just been shattered. 6 months of her sneaking around, lying to me, all while I thought I was her everything. And now she was standing there, begging for my forgiveness. But I couldn't forgive her, not yet. Not after what she'd done. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the whirlwind of thoughts in my head. You think you can just tell me this, and everything will magically be okay? Do you think I'll just forgive you and move on? I said, my voice low, but the anger was seeping through, bubbling just beneath the surface. Her face faltered, and she stepped back slightly. The guilt was written all over her. She hadn't expected this. She hadn't expected me to be so cold, to be so angry. But what did she expect? She was the one who had broken everything we'd built together. I was angry, yes, but more than that, I was hurt. Deeply hurt. I never meant to hurt you, I swear. I didn't know how to stop, she said, her voice trembling as she looked at me, hoping I would understand. But I couldn't. I just couldn't. I took a step toward her, my fists clenched at my sides. You didn't know how to stop? I repeated, my voice rising. You didn't think to tell me, to talk to me? You didn't think to be honest with me when everything started to go wrong? Her eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. But then the reality of the situation hit me again. She had been seeing him, Sam, for months. And she had been lying to my face every single day, pretending everything was fine. Why him? I asked, my voice quieter now, but the question still hung in the air like a heavy weight. Why Sam? What was it about him that made you turn to him instead of me? She looked away, as if the question had stung too much to answer right away. And maybe it did. Maybe she didn't know how to explain it. But that wasn't my problem. She had made her choices. She had hurt me, and now she had to deal with the consequences. I don't know, she whispered. It's hard to explain. It just happened. I didn't plan for it. I didn't want this to happen. But her words were empty now. They didn't make anything better. They didn't undo the damage. The truth was already out. The damage had already been done. I let out a shaky breath, feeling the weight of everything on my shoulders. It was like I was seeing Lily for the first time in a new light. I didn't recognize her anymore. I didn't recognize the woman standing in front of me, the woman I thought I knew so well. How could I have been so blind? How could I have missed the signs? I need space, I said, my voice breaking slightly, but I didn't care. I needed to be alone. I needed to process everything that was happening, to figure out what I was supposed to do now. Lily reached out to me again, but this time, I stepped back, putting some distance between us. Don't, I said, my voice strained. Don't touch me right now. Her hand froze in midair, and she looked at me with a mixture of confusion and hurt. What do you want me to do, then? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know. I didn't know what I wanted anymore. I didn't know how to feel or what to think. Everything was so mixed up in my head. The anger, the pain, the betrayal, everything was spinning, and I couldn't make sense of it. I couldn't even look at her without feeling a deep sense of hurt. I just need some time, Lily, I said, my voice cracking. I need time to think about this. I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. I turned away from her, unable to stand there any longer. I couldn't look at her, not now. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, had just destroyed everything. I could feel the weight of the truth crushing me, and I needed to get out. I needed to escape, even if just for a little while, to figure out what the hell was going on. As I walked out the door, I heard her call my name behind me. But I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. Not now. I needed to be alone. I needed to think. Because I wasn't sure if I could ever look at her the same way again. I stepped out into the night, my heart heavy with the cold truth. And for the first time, I truly didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know who I was without Lily, and I didn't know how to move forward from this. The man I thought I was, the man I thought I knew, he was gone. And all that was left was a question I didn't have an answer to. Could I ever forgive her? Would I ever be able to trust her again? I couldn't remember the last time I had felt this lost. The night air outside the apartment was sharp, biting against my skin as I walked down the street aimlessly, the sound of my footsteps echoing in the emptiness. I didn't know where I was going. My mind was too clouded, too wrapped in a whirlwind of thoughts and questions that wouldn't stop. I needed answers, but I didn't know how to ask the right questions. How could I? I was drowning in this suffocating feeling of betrayal, and Lily's words, the ones she had confessed so freely just minutes ago, kept replaying over and over in my head. 6 months. 6 months of deceit. 6 months of her hiding something from me. Something with another man. And now I was standing here, in the middle of the night, trying to make sense of it all. How had it come to this? I wanted to call someone. I wanted to reach out to my friends, to talk to someone who could help me process what I was feeling. But then the reality hit me. Who could I talk to? How could I explain this? How could I admit that my wife had been lying to me for half a year, that I had been blind to something that was right in front of me all along? I kept walking, my mind racing, trying to connect the dots. I thought back to all the times Lily had been working late or meeting clients. All the nights I had spent on the couch, waiting for her to come home, thinking she was just caught up in her career. I had been so stupid, so naive. How could I not see it? The small changes, the way she had started to pull away, the little hints that something wasn't right. I had ignored it all. I had convinced myself it was nothing, when it was everything. I stopped in front of a small park, sitting down on a bench, the cold air cutting through my jacket. My hands were shaking as I ran them through my hair, trying to find some clarity in the chaos of my thoughts. The last few hours had been a blur. Lily's confession, her tears, the hurt in her eyes, it was all too much. I wanted to scream. I wanted to demand answers, to tear the truth out of her. But something inside me kept holding me back. Something was stopping me from going back home, from facing her again. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was the fear of what I would find if I confronted her again. What if she still wasn't being honest? What if there was more to the story than what she had told me? My mind raced through all the possibilities. What if Sam wasn't the only one? What if this had been going on for even longer than she had said? What if there were other men, other nights that I had never even known about? The thought made me feel sick. I didn't know who to trust anymore. The woman I had built my life with, the one I thought I knew inside and out, she had betrayed me. She had been hiding her secrets, living a double life right under my nose. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. I couldn't stop wondering just how deep the lies ran. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and looked at the screen. There was a message from Lily, sent just a few minutes ago. Please, don't do this. We need to talk. I don't want to lose you. Her words hung there, cold and empty, like a hollow echo. How could I trust anything she said? How could I believe her now? I didn't know what to do with that message. I didn't know what I was supposed to feel. I wanted to respond, to tell her how much she had hurt me, to demand answers. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. I was frozen in this state of confusion and disbelief, caught between the love I still felt for her and the anger that burned in my chest. I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to face her, not yet. Not until I could think clearly, until I had some answers, some sense of where all this was headed. But at the same time, I knew I couldn't keep running. I couldn't keep avoiding the truth. Sooner or later, I would have to confront it. I would have to face Lily again, and I would have to decide if I could ever trust her, if I could ever forgive her. I sighed, looking up at the dark sky above me, the stars hidden by a blanket of clouds. Everything felt heavy, like I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. The uncertainty was eating me alive. The questions, the doubts. They were all consuming me, and I didn't know how to make sense of it. And that's when it hit me. It wasn't just the betrayal. It wasn't just the lies. It was the fact that I didn't know who Lily was anymore. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had shared my life with for years. Was she even the same person? Or had I been living with a stranger this whole time? Was everything we had just an illusion? Did she even love me? Or was I just a part of the story she had created to keep her secrets hidden? The questions burned inside me, unanswered, but I didn't know if I could handle the truth. I stayed at the park for a long time, long after the cold had settled into my bones, long after the darkness had swallowed the world around me. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to move forward. And the longer I sat there, the more I realized I wasn't sure if I wanted to move forward. Maybe the only way out was to let go of everything. The marriage, the lies, the betrayal, and walk away. Maybe that was the only way to save myself. But then, a thought stopped me in my tracks. If I walked away, if I left her, what would that say about me? What kind of man would I be if I didn't at least try to fix things, to salvage what we had left? What if this wasn't the end, but the beginning of something else, something harder, something that would test both of us to our limits? Could I forgive her? Could I rebuild what had been broken? I didn't know, but I had to find out. With a deep breath, I stood up, shoving my hands into my pockets. The decision wasn't clear, but one thing was. I couldn't keep running. I had to go back. I had to face her. And I had to decide if I could look at her again and see anything worth saving. The walk back to the apartment felt like the longest journey I'd ever taken. Each step seemed to take me further away from the man I had been just hours ago. The man who had trusted his wife without question, who had believed in the stability of their life together. Now, I was someone else. Someone broken. Someone betrayed. As I neared our building, my stomach twisted. I could see the light from the window in the living room flickering through the blinds. Lily was still awake. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing in on me. What was I going to say to her? How could I even begin to address what had happened? I didn't know if I was ready to face her, to confront the woman who had shattered everything I thought I knew. But I couldn't delay it anymore. I couldn't keep running. There was no more avoiding the truth, no more pretending everything was fine. The woman I had shared my life with had made a choice. And now, I had to make mine. I took a deep breath as I stood in front of our door, my hand hovering over the doorknob. My heart was racing, pounding in my chest, and my mind felt like it was spiraling. What was I going to say? How would I even begin to repair what had been broken? Could anything be fixed? Or had we reached the point of no return? With a final exhale, I opened the door. The moment I stepped inside, I saw her sitting on the couch, her head turned toward me. She was wrapped in a blanket, her eyes red from crying, and I could tell she had been waiting for me. But there was something different in the air now, something heavy, like the silence between us was a physical presence in the room. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly, her voice shaky, almost like she was afraid of the answer. I didn't answer right away. I wasn't sure if I could. The truth was, I wasn't okay, and I didn't think I ever would be again. "You're not the woman I thought you were," I finally said, my voice low, almost a whisper. The words felt strange coming out, like they didn't belong in this moment. But they were the truth, and I couldn't deny it anymore. Lily's face crumpled as if the words physically hit her. She looked down at her lap, her fingers twisting in the fabric of the blanket, and for a long time, she didn't say anything. It was like she was trying to figure out how to respond, how to justify the choices she had made. But there was no excuse for what she had done. There was no way to explain away the betrayal. "I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I swear, I never wanted to be this person." But I couldn't believe her anymore. Not after everything. Not after seeing her with Sam, hearing her confess to me that she had been living this double life behind my back for months. I wanted to scream, to let the anger and the hurt spill out all at once, but I didn't. I just stood there, numb, as the weight of her words pressed down on me. "I don't know who you are anymore, Lily," I said, my voice breaking. "You've been lying to me, hiding things from me, pretending everything was fine. And now, I don't know what to do." She reached for me, her hand trembling as she moved toward me, but I pulled away. I couldn't let her touch me right now. I couldn't let her pretend that everything could just go back to the way it was. "I didn't want it to go this far," she said again, her voice full of regret. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. It was just supposed to be a few drinks, just one night. But then it turned into something more, and I didn't know how to stop it." I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to say, how could you be so stupid? How could she think that this would just go away? How could she think that I wouldn't see it? That I wouldn't feel the distance growing between us, the wall she had built up in our relationship? But I didn't scream. Instead, I just stood there, my chest tight, my mind a whirlwind of thoughts I couldn't control. Why him? I asked again, my voice quieter this time. I needed to understand. What was it about Sam? Why him? She shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. I don't know, she whispered. I don't know. It was just easy. He listened to me. He made me feel like I mattered. And I started to forget what it felt like to be seen by you. I froze. Her words stung. They pierced through the numbness that had settled inside me. And for the first time, I felt something other than anger, betrayal, yes, but also sadness. A deep, soul-crushing sadness. You forgot what it felt like to be seen by me. I echoed, the words slipping out before I could stop them. I've always been here, Lily. I've always been right here. But you were the one who pulled away. You were the one who stopped sharing with me, who stopped being present. I know, she said, her voice breaking. I know, and I'm sorry. I don't know what happened to us. I don't know when things started to go wrong. But I never meant to hurt you. I didn't think it would get this far. I thought I could keep it all under control. But she couldn't. She couldn't control it, just like she couldn't control her emotions or her actions. She had made her choice, and now it was too late. There was no undoing what had been done. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said, my voice shaky. The words were harder to say than I thought. But they were true. I wasn't sure if I could ever forgive her for what she had done to me, to us. I'll do anything, she said, her voice pleading now. Please, just don't leave me. I love you. I never stopped loving you. The words hung in the air, and for a moment, I thought I might crumble. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that everything could be fixed, that we could start over, rebuild our relationship from the ground up. But something inside me was breaking. I was breaking. I don't know if I can believe you anymore, I whispered. She looked at me, her face desperate, her eyes wide with fear. But I couldn't help her. Not this time. Not when everything I thought I knew had been ripped away in an instant. I need time, I said, more to myself than to her. I need time to figure out what this means, what we are now. And with that, I turned and walked away, leaving Lily behind on the couch. The woman I loved. The woman who had betrayed me. And as I stepped out into the night, the world felt colder than ever. I walked aimlessly, the cool night air biting into my skin, but it wasn't the cold that had my attention. It was the silence. It was the space between me and Lily, a chasm that seemed to grow wider the farther I walked from her. My mind was spinning, questions chasing answers that I couldn't even begin to grasp. How could I ever go back to who I was before? How could I ever trust her again? I'd felt that sharp twist in my stomach when I saw her, sitting on the couch, trying to explain herself, but I couldn't shake the image of her with him. Sam. The way she smiled at him, how she seemed at ease. How, in that moment, they shared something that didn't belong to me, something that I couldn't touch. That, more than anything, was what hurt the most. The trust I'd placed in her was gone, shattered beyond repair, and I had no idea how to rebuild it. I could still hear her voice in my head, echoing those words. I didn't mean to hurt you, but I couldn't even believe those words anymore. How could she have not meant to hurt me when she was making choices that were destroying everything? I had given her my trust, my love, and she had taken it for granted, slipping into a relationship with Sam, someone who wasn't me, without ever once considering what it would do to me, what it would do to us. I turned a corner and found myself standing outside a small bar. The lights inside were warm, casting a soft glow into the street, but I had no intention of going in. I just stood there, staring at the door, feeling the weight of everything crash down on me. I didn't want to talk to anyone, didn't want to hear someone else's opinion about what I should do. I didn't want advice. I wanted answers, but I wasn't sure where to find them. The hours passed without me even realizing it, and soon I was standing in front of the apartment building again. The air had grown colder, the streets quieter, but my thoughts hadn't quieted at all. They were a storm inside me, swirling with fury, confusion, and betrayal. How had I gotten here? How had everything turned into a nightmare? I walked up the stairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. I had no idea what I was going to say to Lily. I didn't know if I even wanted to talk to her again. But the truth was, I couldn't stay away. We were bound together by something, a thread that had once been strong but now felt fragile, ready to snap at the slightest tug. When I reached our apartment door, I paused for a moment, hand on the doorknob. What was I supposed to do now? Could I really walk away? Could I leave the woman I had shared so much with, the woman I had built a life with? But then I thought of the way she had looked at Sam, the way she had smiled at him like I had never existed. I pushed the door open slowly, and there she was, sitting on the couch. She looked up when I walked in, her eyes wide and searching, as if she wasn't sure what to expect from me. The tension between us was palpable. The air itself felt thick with unspoken words. "I'm sorry," she said before I could even speak. "I'm so sorry for everything." But I didn't want apologies. I didn't want to hear how sorry she was. Sorry didn't fix what had been broken. Sorry didn't undo the damage she had done. My eyes were locked on her, and for the first time, I could see her clearly, really see her. The woman who had betrayed me, the woman who had chosen someone else over me. I couldn't recognize her anymore, and it terrified me. "I need to know something," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "When did it happen? When did you stop caring about us? When did you stop caring about me?" Her face crumpled as she looked down at her hands, her fingers twisting nervously in her lap. The silence that followed felt like an eternity. She didn't answer immediately, and that only made it worse. The longer she stayed silent, the more I started to doubt everything. Could she even remember when it all changed? Was it something that had always been there, festering under the surface? Or had it been a slow burn, a gradual drifting away that she hadn't even noticed until it was too late? "I didn't stop caring about you," she said finally, her voice barely a whisper. "I never wanted to hurt you. I don't know when it all started to go wrong. It just happened." Her words were empty. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to reach across the distance and tell her that we could fix this, that we could find our way back to each other. But the truth was, I didn't know if I could trust her anymore. I didn't know if I could ever look at her without seeing the lies, without hearing Sam's name echoing in my head. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Why didn't you tell me when things started to change? Why didn't you come to me?" "I thought I could fix it," she said. "I thought I could figure it out on my own, without bringing you into it. I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want to ruin everything we had." "But you did," I said quietly. "You ruined it." I could see the tears welling in her eyes again, but this time, I didn't feel sympathy. I didn't feel sorry for her. All I could feel was the weight of what had happened, the weight of the betrayal that had broken everything between us. "You don't get it, do you?" I said, my voice rising now, the anger I had been holding back starting to bubble over. "You've been living this double life for months. And now, you think you can just apologize and make it all better? You think I can just forgive you for this?" Her face fell, and she looked away, ashamed. I didn't know what I wanted from her anymore. I didn't know if I even wanted to hear her explanations. What good were they now? Nothing she could say would change what had happened. Nothing she could say would undo the hurt I felt. "I don't know how to fix this," she said, her voice small, her shoulders slumped. "But I'll do anything. I'll do anything to make it right." I shook my head, the bitterness in my chest growing. "You can't fix it, Lily. Not like this. Not after everything." The silence between us felt deafening. I didn't know what to say anymore. I didn't know how to move forward, how to even begin to heal. All I knew was that I couldn't stay here, in this place where everything was broken. I had to leave. I had to find my own way out of this. "I need time," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "I don't know what this is anymore. I don't know who you are anymore." I turned away, not looking back. I didn't know where I was going or what I would find when I left. But one thing was certain, I couldn't stay here. Not now. Not after everything. I walked out of the apartment, leaving Lily behind. And as I stepped into the night once more, I realized I was standing at the edge of something new. Something uncertain. Something that was all mine. And I had no idea if I would ever be able to find my way back. The streets felt endless, but with every step I took, I felt a strange sense of clarity creeping in. I had walked away from the apartment, from Lily, but not from myself. The storm inside me, the anger, the pain, the confusion, it hadn't vanished, but it had shifted. The weight on my chest wasn't as heavy now. Maybe it was because I had finally taken control, or maybe it was because I had accepted that the road ahead wasn't about fixing everything in one moment. It was about moving forward, one step at a time. I walked for what felt like hours, not sure where I was going, but knowing that staying still would mean staying trapped in a place I didn't want to be anymore. The city was quiet, and the night felt more peaceful now, like the world was waiting for me to make my next move. Eventually, I found myself in a small park, a place I used to come to when I needed to clear my head. It was the kind of place that felt timeless, where the weight of the world could melt away if you gave it enough space. I sat on a bench, breathing in the cool night air, letting the stillness wash over me. As I sat there, I realized something important. This was the first time in months that I had felt like me again. Not the man who had been deceived, not the man who had lived in the shadow of someone else's choices, but the man who still had a future, who still had a chance to be happy, even if it meant starting over. The truth about Lily and Sam had torn apart the life I thought I knew, but it hadn't taken away everything. It hadn't taken away my ability to rebuild, to find happiness again. I wasn't sure what that happiness would look like yet, but for the first time in a long while, I felt like it was within reach. I pulled my phone from my pocket and saw a message from Lily. It was simple, but it hit me right in the chest. "I'm sorry. I'll wait for you to figure out what you need. Whenever you're ready, I'll be here." Her words weren't a magic fix. They weren't going to make everything better overnight, but they were real. And for the first time, I saw that maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for us, but only if I allowed it. If I could learn to trust again, to let go of the past and embrace what could be, not just what had been. I stared at the message for a long time, trying to figure out what to do next. It wasn't about rushing back to her. It wasn't about pretending like everything was okay. But I had learned something tonight. Healing took time, for both of us. And it started with taking responsibility for my own peace. I stood up from the bench and took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. But for the first time in a long while, it didn't feel crushing. I had a choice, and that choice was mine. I could take the pain with me and let it guide me into a new chapter, or I could choose to leave it behind. I walked back toward the apartment, not with the same fear that had driven me away earlier, but with a renewed sense of purpose. I wasn't sure where the journey would take me, but I knew that I wasn't walking alone. Lily's apology, her willingness to wait, was a first step. But the real work, the hard part, was going to be on me. Could I forgive? Could I rebuild what we once had? When I got to the apartment, I hesitated for a moment before knocking. I didn't know if she would be awake or if she was waiting anxiously for me, but I knew I had to take that first step forward. I wasn't walking back into the past. I was walking towards something new. Lily opened the door, her face lit with cautious hope, but there was a vulnerability in her eyes that I hadn't seen before. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away," she said, her voice soft but steady. "I just wanted you to know that I'm here. Whenever you're ready." I took a deep breath and nodded. I don't know what this is going to look like, but I'm willing to try. I can't promise everything will be fixed overnight, but I'm willing to give it a shot. Her face softened, and for the first time since everything had started to unravel, I saw a glimmer of hope. Maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe it was the beginning of something new. We didn't know what the future would hold, but as we stood there, facing the uncertain road ahead, I realized that the most important thing wasn't whether we could ever go back to what we had. It was whether we could move forward, together. And for the first time, I felt like we might just be able to.